Welcome to the Top Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Proud Mouse Pod Rocket Academy. I'm your host, Bill Cates, creator of the Cates Academy for Relationship Marketing. In each episode, I interview one of our industry's top performers, getting them to pass on their secrets to success to you, so that you can impact more lives and generate more income. Now, on to the show. Welcome. Before we get started, I want to let you know about some free resources that I invite you to retrieve after you've listened to today's interview. You'll find checklists, guides, videos, other tools. Simply go to referralcoach.com/resources. Now write this down unless you're driving. That's referralcoach.com/resources. It'll also be in the show notes. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our weekly tips. We're always sharing best practices, and we'll notify you of our newest podcast interviews as they go live. And while these resources are free to you, I think you'll find them quite valuable. So my guest for today's show is Todd Gillingham, JD, CFP, ChFC, CLU. Hope I didn't leave any out. I met Todd through Deidre Van Nest during my podcast interview with Deidre. She mentioned some of the things that Todd and his team are doing, and I just knew I had to meet this guy. And by the way, if you haven't listened to my interview with Deidre yet, I highly recommend it. So after you've listened to this show, look up episode 25, Top Advisor Podcast, episode 25. And it's entitled How Your Personal Brand Story Helps Attract New Clients. And we'll be touching on that a little bit here today with Todd. Anyway, back to Todd Gillingham. Todd is one of the founding partners of Landmark Wealth Management Group. He works from their office in Lake Elmo, Minnesota, in the greater Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I believe I have some great topics to delve into with Todd. We're going to talk about why the Landmark team went independent. We're going to talk about their use of video, how the team has done well by focusing on a large employer in their area, how Landmark is implementing their client-focused why stories that I just mentioned. And we'll top things off with a concept he brings to his clients that is part of Landmark's mission statement, helping guide their clients towards abundance. Todd Gillingham, welcome to Top Advisor Podcast.
Bill, it's a privilege to be here with you, and I know you'll bring value to your listeners. I'm trying to figure out if I will, but they'll be the judge of this.
Yeah, I know you will. We wouldn't be here if I didn't think that. So thank you. One humble guy to another here, right? So before we get into the meat of so many great things that you and your team are doing, let's create a little bit of context. Just give me the executive briefing of your firm, how many team members, types of clients your team are attracting these days, anything else you think our listeners might find interesting.
Bill, at Landmark Wealth Management Group, as you mentioned, our mission is to help guide our clients on their financial journey toward abundance. And so our executive team puts the client at the center of all of our decisions. I'm sure like every financial services firm. We have 3 Twin Cities offices. We have 1 Silicon Valley office, 35 team members, of which 12 are wealth advisors, and I think half of them have their CFP, which we're proud of that. Mm-hmm. We target clients from Fortune 500 companies and business owners looking at ways to exit appropriately. We manage about $800 million in assets under management and probably another $200 million, maybe a little more than that, in annuity programs for our clients.
So let's start with video. You have 2 videos on your homepage. You have videos scrolling across your About page where each team member shares their story of why they truly believe in their value. You post videos on LinkedIn. You've created a lot more videos for other purposes. And I want to save the scrolling why videos for later. I'd like you to tell us your story of how YouTube became an important tool for you, and housing videos on YouTube and using videos with clients and prospects, and really some of the results that it's produced for you.
Yeah. So you asked about YouTube. It's really been a garage for us because there's bigger storage capabilities there than on the website. So I'll come back to YouTube because strategically, I think it's going to become more important. At least that's what we're hoping. But over the past 2 years, we've worked hard at getting our messaging out to existing and prospective clients. More recently, we've created several brief videos In fact, there's a book, Axios, Smart Brevity, that's great. Just getting your messaging brief and cogent. And so I read that at an opportune time, but it just helps us keep things really short and to the point. And so we send these out to select Fortune 500 companies to learn more about their employee benefits and a little bit more about our firm. So we send these videos individually as part of an overall email campaign. And again, it's just education, and we let them know that we're not their employer, and that we're able to work in concert with their human resources area and their third-party providers and whatever tools that they have available. We're there to augment those, not to replace those, because people pay us for advice, which their HR department cannot provide. As far as lead generation activity, we're always measuring, Bill, $1 invested, get us $3. So our standing lead gen committee, everybody, it's a mantra. And so as an example, and I'm cherry picking, okay, we did a video last September, and conservatively, let's say we spent $10,000, including labor. That topic, which was hot, lump sum versus lifetime annuity income for those that were in the bullseye, everybody wanted information on that. So, we went viral, and it generated, as of the end of Q1 last week, 20 million in revenue for the firm. So you do the math, it's about $1 invested got us $2,000 of revenue. We'll take that, but that's not going to happen every day. So easily 10 to 1. Our CFO would sign off on that in a second.
So $10,000 on one video, or was it more than the production of the video? Because that sounds a lot for one video. Was it more to it than that when you say 10,000?
Yeah, when you factor in the talent's time, so Christian and myself as the talking head, was it really 10,000? And maybe it was half of that, but I didn't want it to be accused of aggressively messing with the numbers. So realistically, maybe we did it for $2,000, but even at 10,000, you don't know. There's a little bit of going to Vegas with this, but day in and day out, it's just employee benefit information that sometimes the human resources area has great information. Oftentimes they're overloaded with too many things. And so we supplement that, and people want to learn.
Before we get to another topic, I want to, I was reminded of a past episode with Jeremy Kyle. It's episode number 27. I wanted to look it up so people can listen to Jeremy. He did a video. His target market in Milwaukee is
Harley Davidson.
Harley Davidson, exactly
right.
Jeremy's
a friend, yeah.
Yeah, and that one video that he did, one of many, is what all his clients use to introduce Jeremy to them. So just from an introductory factor, it's paid off big for him. So in the spirit of target market, if you will, it's one of my favorite topics, how you can expand your results by narrowing your focus. So in your case, your focus is on attracting and serving clients in a very large employer, much like Jeremy, in your metropolitan area. I know it's not everything you do, but it's a big part of what you do. So tell us the impetus for why you did this, what the process looks like a little bit, and most importantly, always the results you've been able to produce.
So you got to go back a few years. I was a corporate guy and enjoyed that, the formative years. And going back to 89, my first financial advisor. So I had the cube, and here comes this guy with a really bad mustache, knocks on my cube, and it's Gary Tangwall. So Gary is a great friend and the founder with me of this firm. And so it was a good advisor for me. And we just kept tabs on each other. So 2006, fast forward, I had an opportunity to do something different and on my terms. And so I thought it was time to see if I could be an advisor. And so after about 8 months with Gary, who is just this legendary, good person and awesome advisor for our predecessor organization, we looked at each other and said, there's got to be a better way doing just workshop marketing and kind of the same old was kind of boring, and it wasn't producing the results that he and I thought that we could do. So we talked about two different Fortune 500 organizations in our neighborhood, and it took us about 3 minutes to do pluses and minuses, and we landed on 3M. So 3 miles from this office in Lake Elmo is global headquarters for 3M. I think at the end of the day, it was a lot of trial and error. I had done a lot of public speaking. Gary hadn't done as much, but together we just improved every time we did a learning event. And sometimes it was on 3M turf. Most often it was not, but we would use a newspaper to advertise these workshops, and we would build an audience. And statistically, pretty consistently, 70% of the attendees through a response form or a resource form, as we called it, would want to take advantage of the free consult, free 60-minute. And of those, 50% would sign up as clients.
Well,
and so that was already pretty good. And we knew we had something there, just understanding the benefits as well as you must in that situation. Probably done 150 of those types of workshops over the years. But at about 125, I looked at Gary and I said, hey, death by PowerPoint in over lunch, 75 minutes. Let's just pull up a couple of bar stools and let's promote this as a Q&A. Bring your questions and try to stump us. And it worked out well. It took some courage on our part. But you do this so long, you can answer most of the questions. And those you can't, you say, well, I'm not sure. It's probably this, but give me your contact information. I'll get back to you. And we always did. And so that was a huge opportunity because it put us in a different light. It made us more human. We could tell stories about each other and kind of pick on each other, and people thought maybe that had some entertaining value. Most of it was me picking on Gary, unfortunately. And then we met Deirdre. This is probably 5 years ago, and we heard about her public speaking ability and her own story, which, I'd invite your listeners to really listen to her podcast with you because it's quite a story that she has to tell. And so she came to one of our PowerPoint presentations, Bill, and afterwards she said something like, oh, Todd and Gary, that's a lot of information, so much information. And I said, yeah, it's great, isn't it? And she said, no. It's really too much information. But I said, wait, they're engineers, they're analytical. And she said, yeah, but they're also humans. They want some stories. And so very quickly, we inserted some true stories. And obviously, we changed the clients' names to protect their confidentiality. Mm-hmm. And it was a challenge for Gary and I, and you get better each time you do it because some were happy stories, but some are tragic. But you could tell the first time we did it, people immediately were more involved with you as a presenter. Their eyes were focused on you. You had them, if you did this right, you had their total attention. And it was discernible, it was immediate, and our response forms, our evaluations, if you will, improved even more because we got human. We just even though you're the most analytical engineer in the world and you love death by Excel spreadsheet, you love a good story, even if it's happy ending or tragic. So Deirdre was incredibly important for our formative learning with all of our advisors to say, make sure people understand, your prospective clients, your existing clients understand who you are after you listen appropriately to them and have them figured out. Because they appreciate that your humanity as well.
So I've got a few follow-ups to that. First of all, early on, you said you were putting ads in the newspaper. Probably wouldn't do that anymore. Who reads a newspaper? But so most of these events were not at the 3M campus, but they were geared towards 3M. So in the promotion, did it say for 3M employees? I guess that's the point I want to try to get.
Yeah, we would couch it saying for 3M specifically. We'd have 8 or 9, kind of teaser bullets. Mm-hmm. Did you know about their benefits? and it would be comprehensive in scope, just like our firm, from estate planning to non-qualified stock options to income tax minimization, lump sum or lifetime annuity. And in the ads, we'd say, if you work at another firm, your benefits may be similar, so you're welcome to attend. So we wouldn't shut out others, but mainly it was 95% always a 3M audience.
Well, it's going to be most relevant to them, and they see that it's relevant to them pretty much immediately, right? The other question follow-up was the bar stool. All right, you're doing PowerPoints, you were doing kind of formal seminars, you said, and we just pull up a bar stool. So I think it's probably more than that. You weren't at a bar, and I mean,
a couple times we were, Bill.
Okay. So
three Mers like to have fun, and so we would figure out where some of the local watering holes. But to your point, we also did it at some nice country clubs in the neighborhood. But we just sit down and we just be really an audience member. And from an intimacy standpoint, even if it was a larger crowd, you'd get closer to the attendees, especially if you were able to answer their questions.
I see. So it wasn't like you're off back, separated, PowerPoint, kind of an artificial separation between you and the audience. When you mean pull up a bar stool, sitting there in front of them, having a conversation, the whole thing got less formal, I think, is what I'm hearing. Yes. Yeah,
and you'd promote it as Q&A. Bring your questions, and you'd wait maybe 3 seconds for the first person. No one was shy.
Yeah.
And then you were off and running, and the 75-minute session went by in a flash.
And then the final follow-up before we move on is the stories that you told. So these were mostly client stories. Were they kind of like mini case studies? Here was this person's situation, and this is the challenge, and here's what we did, and here's how they felt afterwards, sort of that sort of story?
Yeah, most of them were fairly brief, less than 3 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. Gary had a memorable one about Social Security and what happens if you pick the right combination. I started the presentations off typically, and it was more about a family that maybe made a wrong decision. And so there was some emotion with that, and death, and based on real fact pattern. And so if you don't want to leave a mess for your family, kind of that sort of thing, here's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So you get their attention right away, but we would probably do 5 or 6 fairly small 3-minute max stories to frame important topics based on their benefits.
By the way, for those of you listening, I want you to really get the story side of things. I got a call from a guy, an advisor, actually it was his wife, really, said, we get people to our seminars, but we can't convert. And what happened was it was a knowledge dump to the point where they were leaving the room and he's still dumping knowledge on them. And either they were confused, they didn't know what to do. So yeah, you humanize yourself as well, do you not, when you tell stories? And people want to know what you're talking about. They want credibility, and they also want to like you and trust you. And I think stories does all of that. In just a minute, I'm going to ask Todd about how he and his team have embraced and implemented this concept of communicating why they believe in their value. It's kind of their story. And they have a great way of showing this in video on their website. And then we'll wrap up with how Todd and his team talk to their clients about helping guide them on their journey towards abundance. But first, let's briefly pause to listen to a word from our sponsor, Pod Rocket Academy, who makes this podcast possible. And I should add, is in the business of helping advisors launch and run their own podcasts.
This podcast is sponsored by Proudmouth, the Influence Accelerators.
Proudmouth.
If you're like our clients, you want to spend more time educating people and less time selling. That's why we turn Main Street experts like you into trusted mainstream authorities. We help you amplify your influence over a growing audience of magnetically attracted fans who will chase you down instead. Visit proudmouth.com to learn more.
Be your own loud.
Before we continue with this episode, I want you to know about a new tool that you just might want to check out. We call it Rapid Fire Referrals. If you're new to my work, this is a great, affordable entry point to some of the processes and that I teach. And if you've been following me for a while, this is a great tool to keep going and being reminded of our processes and create your exponential growth, keep everything top of mind. One of our advisors nickname Rapid Fire Referrals as the habit maker. So in a nutshell, once per week for 52 weeks, you'll receive a short, high content video lesson geared to provide very specific actions that you can implement immediately to start multiplying your best clients, turning that incremental growth into exponential growth, getting in front of the right type of clients in the most efficient way. In addition to the weekly lessons, you'll also get access to a special bonus interview that provides you with great overview of our complete system right at the very beginning. It gives you more context to the videos that follow. While you may be sick of me after 52 video lessons, I can guarantee you won't be sick of the results producing ideas that we provide in each video. So as a listener of Top Advisor Podcast, you also receive $100 off the regular investment of $297. So it's only $197 for all these lessons and the bonus interview. Just make sure you use the coupon code RFR100. So it's rapidfirereferrals.com and then RFR100. Our featured guest on this episode of Top Advisor Podcast is Todd Gillingham, the founding partner of Landmark Wealth Management Group. Todd works out of their Lake Elmo, Minnesota office. For years, I've been teaching a concept I call your client-focused why. Essentially, it's why you believe in your value, and how that belief is a benefit to the clients. And that second part's an important part, right? It's not just all about you and why you believe in your value, which is also very good, but it's also, and therefore, the impact to the client. And this sort of why typically gets communicated in the form of a story, as we've been talking a little bit. So I mentioned at the top of this interview, I learned, Todd, about you through my podcast interview with Deidre Van Nest, who you've mentioned, and that's Top Advisor Podcast episode number 25. So I'd like you to talk about why this concept spoke to you and the creative ways that you've implemented this strategy in the videos and other ways, and the results that you might be able to attribute to that. Big question, I guess,
Yes.
but please.
Yeah. So Deirdre gets a lot of congratulations and thanks from our team. And you're always learning. You're always looking at data. You're always trying to figure out what's next. And I think if you interviewed our partners, some would say, what's your differentiator? You might get 5 or 6 different answers. I know one answer you would get from some would be, well, we're comprehensive in scope. We help people with minimizing income tax, with creating or updating their estate plan, retirement income distribution strategies, in addition to helping manage their money with our track investment ops and investment research team. And that's all well and good, but there's several firms out there that also do comprehensive financial planning. And so what Deirdre helped us with is, and I'm being redundant, but it was getting us to a point where, look, people want to understand that you get your topic. You are an expert in these areas, and you have expertise with a 3M and their benefits. That's great. Maybe that's a differentiator for us with 3M. We built a brand there over, 17 years or whatever it's been. But if you can take that further and show your humanity and give prospective clients a better sense as to who we are as advisors, both, good stories, happy endings, and those that are tough to tell. And proud of our advisors, because many of them, took that initiative very, very seriously and did some soul searching. And one partner talked about her divorce and how difficult it was. But, really shared information that I didn't know. And so that sort of, if you're going to come work with us as a client, we want you to know us. Our job is to listen to you and understand you first and foremost, but also you deserve to have an understanding about where we come from and what makes us tick.
Yeah, I often say that people want to know what you do. They want to know how you do it. They want that credibility piece, but they also want a sense of who you are, right? If you're going to influence and the current and future, their future financial life, who is this person? And so you have, I know on your about page, you have these videos, these short videos scrolling across. I am curious how your team reacted to your request to everyone do a video, because some people don't feel comfortable doing this. Did they react pretty well? Did they get into the video? Did they enjoy it? Did you drag them reluctantly?
It depends. And so, I'll pick on Gary. No, put someone else in front of the camera. But he did great. And the story, resonates with people. Another partner, it was more difficult because don't like to be in front of the camera, number one, and number two, the story is hard to tell. And so very proud of her for, giving that perspective and that side of her, which makes her more human. And so for most of the advisors, I think it was, what is my story? We kind of ask our clients, and maybe a differentiator for some firms out there, here's all the quantitative stuff, right? The numbers and who owns what, and if I die first, what happens? There is this whole somewhat explored, but yet still, how do you monetize it? Kind of the qualitative values-based side. And Daryl, one of the founding partners who's now retired, Daryl Scheidler, but he's still professor emeritus of education for our team. He was a groundbreaker and also one of the first CFPs ever at helping people define, okay, what are you going to do next? You're excited to retire, but everyone needs a purpose. And so that's a differentiator as well. If you have the type of client that is willing, and not all are, to get into this qualitative, based on my values, based on my definition of abundance, here's what I want to focus on now or next. And that can separate you. And I think that's, again, Deirdre helping us further kind of push ourselves as advisors to say the numbers are important, the performance is important, it's making sure the estate plan is tight and the financial plan is tight, but there's more. And you can ingratiate yourself to clients, you can help retention, you can attract more if you can figure out how to, explain that it's not just about the quantitative, there's this whole qualitative side that if you allow us, we can get into that and help you as well.
Yeah, and I want to get into, that's a perfect segue into the next topic. But before I get there, I always like to put myself in the shoes and the minds of the folks listening. So just a little bit more back to this story and this why. I know it's video on your website. Do you also talk to prospective clients or clients about this? Do you and your team members, I'm guessing early on in the new relationship, shift a little and say, this is why we do this? Do you reveal that personally, or do you just leave it for the website?
So you're like the good litigator. So that's like the third time you walked that past me. So that's good, Bill. I caught on now. So thank you.
Not a problem.
Yeah. So as advisors, the last 3 times I've asked, it's usually at the end of the first meeting. And I have a first meeting here in an hour from now. And I'll ask at the end. And the last 2 times, they've already seen it, which is great. Maybe that helped them make the decision to come in and talk with me or other advisors. And so to have it on a good website, and ours is in need of improving, probably everybody would say that for their own website, just because it's just a moving target. To have it out there and people that are really doing their due diligence on you and your firm, they probably have already looked at that. And so we are finding A lot have previewed. For those that haven't, we give them an opportunity at that first meeting because it's, again, it's brief, it's to the point, 3 or 4 minutes generally, and it does a really nice job of explaining who this advisor is.
So you'll play the video in the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Interesting.
And we ask
Let-
permission, and some,
Of course.
no, I'll watch it when I get home, and okay, that's fine.
All right. All right. So abundance. Tell us more about this. This is part of your values, part of perhaps a differentiator, as you've hinted. How did that evolve for you? How did that come about? And is it helping you win more clients? I'm sure it's helping you keep your current clients. And just a follow up to this complicated question, I suspect not all clients want to go there with you, or maybe I'm wrong. So tell us what that is, how you got there, a little more about it.
Yeah, so serving as a guide, helping our clients on their journey toward abundance. Daryl Scheidler, so now retired, still helping us with education at Landmark Wealth Management Group, and a dear friend and a great mentor. So the mission statement is his, and there's some biblical roots to it. But to answer your question, we don't propose what abundance is for our clients. So no one's ever said, nah, I don't want to go there.
Okay.
We right away explain, this is your definition of abundance, and it might be financial. It may not. It may be time. And we give some examples of other clients that have come through. And, there's the story, clients, both 3Mers, and they were so excited to get retired and just, okay, yeah, here's the math. You can retire now. You're going to do just great. What are you going to do? Well, we're going to travel. Where are you going to go? And right then, as an advisor, they haven't really thought about this. So helping people with that purpose, which may or may not be part of that abundance umbrella for them, but it just lets our clients know that, yes, the financial aspect is really important, and that's what drove them here, or understanding their benefits or not having to worry about stuff. But if they want to get into more of the, what's my purpose going to be today or tomorrow when things change, we're equipped, or getting better equipped to do that, because that is also a moving target, and that's hard for some advisors to get into those types of discussions.
It can be. I think, though, that when you help people create a vision, or create more clarity around their vision for what that next phase would look like, I mean, that's important work, right? And they get excited about it. I think it probably helps them stay on the path of doing what they need to do to get there. I suspect it might also make you more referable, does it not? I mean, just because what you bring to them is probably more than what they expected. They thought you were just going to help them manage their finances, perhaps, or manage their investments, but they walk away with a lot more. Is that the case? Tell me how that you feel it's impacting the relationships and perhaps even the referability of the practice.
It definitely helps retention. It does help referability. At the end of the day, that process of going deeper with clients, and sometimes you have to kind of figure out profitability on this and how to monetize it. But retaining a client is worth a lot financially. And so I think for our firm, if we devote some time and at least open the door to help define what abundance is for clients based on their values and goals, that does open their eyes, because they haven't generally heard that before. And this is a different experience. They may be fearful of it, but we try to do this in a caring way, and assign a little bit of homework. But when it's all said and done, if they choose to stay with you, or engage with you and stay with you for years, it was all worth it. And,
Yes,
and I think
for
they're better prepared to face whatever comes at them. And the line that I've used often at many of these 3M events and estate planning learning events is, who wants to leave a mess?
Right.
And no one generally, sometimes there's a smart guy that raises their hand, but generally because of love, no, I don't want to leave a mess. And so as part of the estate planning process and updating and creating estate plans, I mean, this is a natural to have these types of legacy discussions. And, sometimes people have thought that through. Other times it's deer in the headlights, but they want to figure it out with your help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if they've thought it through, then they go, yes, I've done this. I know this is important. I'm glad they talk about it. And if they haven't done it, they'll go, yeah, I better work on this. Right. So either way, it can't hurt you. Our featured guest today has been Todd Gillingham, the founding partner of one of the founding partners of Landmark Wealth Management Group based in Greater Minneapolis, St. Paul. Todd, thank you so much for joining me on Top Advisor Podcast.
Bill, privilege again, and look forward to visiting with you in the future.
Absolutely. To you, the listener of this podcast, may I ask you a small favor? If you like this episode or like the podcast in general, please leave a 5-star review on the platform you're listening to the show. Not all platforms have a place for reviews, but if yours does, I'd be grateful. Thank you. And if you haven't already, head over to referralcoach.com/resources to sign up for our weekly tips and access a ton of free guides, scripts, an abundance, I should say, of free guides and scripts. And don't forget to check out rapidfirereferrals.com, and use the coupon code RFR100 to save $100. This is Bill Cates reminding you that ideas do not make you more successful. It's only acting on those ideas that will bring you the success you desire. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the Top Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Proud Mouse Pod Rocket Academy. I encourage you to visit my website, referralcoach.com, for links to my books, online courses, and to register for the Cates Academy.